What would it take, you think, to get a deal done at this point? How close is a potential deal?
Well, I don't know if I'd say the word is close. I think movement, which is, look, if we want to be, we need to be realistic here. The only way you get a bill passed, right, is simple. How you make a bill become law is you got to get it passed out of the Senate, which under our rules require Democrats and Republicans to vote for it. You need 60 votes. You got to get it passed in the House, which is controlled by Democrats, and you have to have a Republican president sign it. So that means anything we come up with is going to have things that both sides make concessions on and both sides get priorities in. And the only way to do that is for each side to kind of move towards each other to get a deal done. And up till last night, there was no movement towards each other. At least now there's been an agreement to say, all right, well, we want to get a deal done by the end of this week so we can have a vote on it early next week and get it done. So that's a positive sign. Obviously, there's a lot of work to be done now to bridge some of these divides, which are still pretty wide in issues like unemployment, foreclosure, liability, and protections, and things of that nature.
We had Senator Mike Braun, the Republican from Indiana, on earlier this morning, and he said that the sticking point for him would be if you try to put any municipality or state money that goes into this. He said he would look askance at that, and so would some of his other conservative Republicans that he's kind of aligning himself with at this point. But we know that Leader McConnell has said at this point he may break with some in his caucus. I'm guessing from talking to you in the past and from listening to what you're saying right now that you might be inclined to go along with a package that some of your Republican colleagues might not. Is that true?
Well, I think we have to do something. Like, the biggest problem here, the worst thing that could happen is that we do nothing and then let this thing ride on its own. And we're going to be right back here because, for example, the PPP funds for most small businesses have been exhausted. They spent through their 8 weeks of payroll. So you're going to begin to see at some point small business layoffs again as companies ran out of the PPP money. There's still great uncertainty in whatever sector they're in, and they start laying people off. So that's a real thing, and we're going to see it, and unfortunately, and then that begins to trickle across the rest of the economy, including the real estate sector, because they can't pay rent and so forth. So we have to act. We have to do something, and that will require us to vote for a bill that has things in it that I may not necessarily like. Now, there's a limit to what you're going to take. I'm not going to pass the $3 billion HEROES Act or whatever they called it, which has all kinds of stuff in there that has nothing to do with this pandemic. So $3 billion, I'm sorry. The $3 trillion, I apologize.
Yeah, $3 trillion, right. Right, it's hard to get your head around big numbers like this.
I know. So anyway, so that's why everyone's going to have to do something to move to get what we want, which is the nature of divided government.
Senator, what would you like to see happen with small businesses in particular? We did have a couple of senators on yesterday, Senator Bennett from Colorado and Senator Young from Indiana, who bipartisan have put together, I think, 48 people who have signed on who have said they would like to see very low interest loans that would potentially be forgiven, paid out and backed up by the government. I think they had a price tag of about $300 billion in federal money that it would take to kind of get that started and seeded. What do you think about that plan? What would you go along with?
Yeah, no, I think their idea is a very good idea. The problem is, we don't even have $300 billion in the entire small business sector of the bill. I mean, what we've been allocated, what we've been told that we have is a little under $300 billion, a bit under $300 billion, and that includes about $125 billion that rolls over of unspent PPP money. So we don't even have $300 billion for the whole program, not to mention for that specific one. We have tried to incorporate a version of that idea, scaled down to, for example, opportunity zones and new market tax credit zones, census tracts. What we know, there are low-income, so that small business and low-income neighborhoods have very little, money on hand beyond a couple weeks, if at all. And so we've tried to take the general concept and sort of scale it down. So I'm not against their idea. Right now, we just don't have the $300 billion allocated to us to do it. I also think that, it could be a challenge for the Small Business Administration to administer something that big and that new. It's all the challenges of getting PPP up and running. So, I'd like to see some runway on when it starts up because they're going to need some time to get something like that operational. But the concept is a positive concept. We just haven't been allocated the money right now to do it. Yeah.
Senator, it's Scott. It's good to see you this morning. A couple things, a couple of other hot stories, if you will. Wondering what role you played specifically in getting the president not to ban TikTok outright and allow these talks to take place with Microsoft? Your name has been mentioned in some reports as intervening.
Well, I wouldn't say intervening. I gave my opinion. I talked to the Secretary of the Treasury. I talked to the Chief of Staff. I talked to the President. And I shared my view, a couple points. It's not that TikTok and before it Musical.ly, which is what ByteDance bought, it's not the videos that is the problem. I mean, ultimately, they're actually, 15-second videos. They're actually, pretty funny videos on many occasions, and certainly very interesting. It's not the videos. It is the data. Data is more valuable than gold. Personal data today is more valuable than gold. That data is what commerce is going to be built on, what medicine and pharmaceutical, everything is going to be based on. And the difference between TikTok and the other social media apps is by Chinese law, ByteDance has to turn over all of their data to the Chinese government. In fact, their disclosure says so, and I don't care where they store it. That's the big problem. And so if the company can be sold or transferred to a company that sets up processes to protect that data from any government coming in and just grabbing all of it because they want it, then I think it's fine. If they can't, then they can't continue to exist. So that's my view on it. It's and ultimately, look, when you ban something outright, you turn it into the forbidden fruit. You actually make people want to go on it more. And there are ways, that people can work around any sort of blocks to get on it. But I prefer to just have a site that doesn't turn over the data to the Chinese government. And if we can find a way to do that, then to a new owner, then I don't care who that owner is, as long as it's someone that we trust in that regard and has a proven record of doing that, then I think we'll be fine. If not, then we have a problem.
You comfortable with the president saying that the government needs to get some payment for giving this deal the go-ahead, which the president has doubled down on in the last 24 hours? Do you agree with the president?
Well, the president's a good negotiator, and he drives a hard bargain. And if he can figure out a way to get money for the United States out of such a transaction, that's great. But ultimately, I think the big issue here is I never viewed this as a revenue source. I viewed it as a national security problem, both long-term and in the midterm, in terms of their ability to collect data. And so for me, as long as we can, through our laws, create a situation where that data is no longer being turned over to the Chinese Communist Party, I think that's a huge win that I frankly don't think you can measure in dollars and cents.
Senator, the headlines have been trumpeting the fact that coronavirus cases have certainly come down in Florida, but I've also read a lot about how many of those testing centers, especially the ones outside, had been shut down ahead of the tropical storm coming up. Deaths yesterday were reported to be 245, and that's a high number. Where do you think things stand right now in terms of Florida and COVID?
Well, what happens is that COVID becomes a big deal in the news again, and then people start to change their lives. I can just tell you both anecdotally, but I'm very comfortable in saying this because I was there, okay? What happened is coronavirus kind of fell out of the news for a couple of days when the protests started and all that sort of thing. And so that combined with the reopening, people got comfortable. They started going out. You started doing things that, like if things were back to normal and the virus was no longer a great threat. The virus was still a threat. It just wasn't as prevalent. And then you saw the numbers surge. Deaths are a lagging indicator, so it's kind of the last thing for the continuum. The first thing you'll see is the emergency room visits, then you'll see the cases, then you'll see the hospitalizations, and then you'll see the death. So we've seen all of those. The emergency room visits, the cases, the hospitalizations begin to track down, and now the last one that will begin to come down is the deaths. But if we reach better numbers, the virus is still out there, and it's not like the virus is 20% less dangerous. It's still dangerous. So it is important to learn the lesson from the first time. And as we go back, we don't go back to normal. We go back to the new normal, which for some time, until we make more advances against this disease, will require us to do many things differently than we used to do before.
Senator, at the same time, you have, I just saw the numbers in the last 24 hours. Maybe they've changed just slightly, but you have 46 hospitals with 0 ICU beds. 26 only have 1, and there are 4 counties at the minimum now that have 0. How concerning is that?
Well, it is, and I think that's one of the unique aspects of this is that, on a regional basis, the numbers will vary. Even if the case numbers are not high or the percentages are not high, the ICU numbers might be high, and then it requires them to enter into ventures with neighboring hospitals. I believe both Pinellas and Hillsborough, particularly, I believe Hillsborough had some concerning numbers yesterday with regards to ICU. Now, those numbers generally don't count beds that can be converted into ICU units. So that's why I don't think you're hearing sort of a state-level alarm, and there are arrangements made for neighboring counties to assist in availability. But again, I mean, the concern is, as you've outlined, is that anytime you have to make those kinds of moves, it puts a strain on the rest of the system. So hopefully those numbers will begin to improve. And as I said, as admissions come down, ultimately your ICU numbers will eventually come down as well.